Summary of the Winslow Boy by Terence Rattigan. In 1912, Ronnie Winslow, 14 years old, has just gotten home from Osborne Naval College, where he was kicked out for reportedly stealing a postal order from a classmate. When he tells Violet, the Winslow's housekeeper, who he is, he seems very scared. Arthur, Grace, Dickie, and Catherine, Ronnie's brothers, get home from church, and he quickly runs into the garden to hide from the rain. Arthur scolds Dickie for not working hard enough on his studies at Oxford University, which he pays for, as the family walks in the door. Dickie says he is being treated unfairly and that Ronnie is the favorite kid. Catherine is deeply committed to equal rights for women, so Grace asks her about her fiancé, John Watherstone, and whether he still wants to marry her. Soon after, John comes to the house to talk to Arthur about the possible marriage and get his permission. After a stiff and official talk, Arthur agrees to give a small dowry. Now that John is alone with Catherine, he tells her how nervous he was during the talk with Arthur. He had planned some beautiful words ahead of time, but not about how much he loves Catherine, which made Catherine laugh. He thought that Arthur and he would know that already. Ronnie shows himself to Catherine while he is wet, and she reads the letter that says he was kicked out of school. Catherine tells Dickie to get Grace and keep Arthur upstairs so he doesn't see Ronnie when he comes in. When Grace comes down, she makes a big deal out of Ronnie. Dickie, on the other hand, can't believe he was kicked out for a bit of pinching. They all agree that it's best to keep Ronnie away from Arthur because they are afraid of how he will respond to being kicked out. Desmond Curry, the family's helpless lawyer, shows up. He is happy for Catherine and John, even though it makes him feel a little weird because he has loved Catherine for a long time. To celebrate the proposal, Arthur pulls out a bottle of wine and asks Violet to bring some glasses. He pours a drink for everyone, even Violet, who says she didn't want one because her glass was meant for Ronnie. Arthur says Ronnie isn't coming back from college yet, but then he realizes Ronnie might have been kicked out. He tells Ronnie to go downstairs and then has Grace read him the letter. He then tells everyone else to leave the two of them alone in the room. It hurts Arthur to hear that his son would rather hide in the rain than face his anger. He looks Ronnie straight in the eyes and asks, "Know the truth? Did you steal the package or not?" With tears in his eyes, Ronnie strongly rejects the charge, and Arthur believes him. Arthur puts Ronnie to bed and picks up the phone right away to try to clear his son's name. After 9 months, Dickie and Catherine are reading newspaper letters about the Winslow Boy case in the living room for fun. A lot of people have different thoughts on the case, which has been covered by the media. Some see it as a basic fight for human rights, while others say it's a huge distraction for the Navy that should be working on more important things, like Germany's rearmament. Dickie and Catherine dance to the gramophone to feel better. Catherine tells Dickie that her wedding has been pushed back because John's father is away for 6 months as a military colonel. While Arthur is talking to Dickie one-on-one, he asks him to rate his own chances of passing his Oxford tests. However, Arthur tells his son that because the legal procedures are costing a lot of money, he will no longer be able to pay for Dickie's studies and he will have to leave Oxford. Arthur tells everyone that he is hiring Sir Robert Morton, who is the most prestigious lawyer in the country. Arthur tells Catherine that he won't be able to give her the gift they were planning and asks her if they're mad to keep going with the case. But Catherine has already accepted this. She says she doesn't trust Sir Robert because she doesn't agree with his ideas and believes he is only looking out for himself. Sir Robert shows up with Desmond. He tells Arthur that he is going to use a complicated legal process called a petition of right to get permission to sue the Crown, which is basically the government. He tells Ronnie to come down and then questions him very deeply. Ronnie is very upset about this because he knows he practiced his classmates' signing but can't remember everything that happened that day. Ronnie strongly rejects that he is guilty and that he is hurting his family, which is what Sir Robert says. Catherine and Arthur start to not like Sir Robert's method, but he quietly leaves, saying that he will take on the case because the boy is plainly innocent. After 9 months, the case is getting more attention from the media and is now being talked about in the British government. Arthur sits in his armchair and reads Ronnie and Grace a story about the argument while they try to stay awake and sew their socks. Ronnie should probably just go to sleep, but Arthur thinks he should hear the news about his case. Arthur also tells Grace that Violet has to be fired because they can't pay her anymore. Grace doesn't want to do that, and she charges Arthur, through tears, of giving up their lives for the case. Kate tells Arthur what happened during the day when she gets back from watching Parliament. To Catherine's surprise, Sir Robert walks in through the door right then and makes her feel better. Arthur reads a letter that Violet brought in while Catherine and Sir Robert talk about how Violet questioned Ronnie earlier. After reading the new letter, Arthur suddenly says they need to drop the case. Catherine grabs the letter, which is from John's father, and says that he won't be able to approve the marriage unless the Winslows drop their lawsuit. As a colonel, he thinks their attack on the military system is embarrassing and unpatriotic. When John gets there, he almost gets Catherine to agree that they should drop the case. But right then, Sir Robert gets a call saying that the petition of right has been granted. This means that the case can go to court and be tried in public. Arthur says Catherine should decide if the case goes forward. She says without a doubt that it must. John storms off. After 5 months, the case is still one of the most talked about in the country. The Winslow house is always full of reporters, and the phone is always ringing. Dickie walks in. He just got back from reading, where he works at a bank. While Arthur is sitting in the yard, Grace calls him to come inside for lunch. She then tells Dickie how exciting she finds the court case. She's never seen such crowds, though she doesn't really understand what's going on. Dickie asks Catherine how she is doing because he heard John broke up with her. Arthur goes up the stairs and puts on a wheelchair. His health is getting worse. Grace tells Dickie that Arthur is going to a care home after the trial, even though she doesn't think he will actually go. Arthur then goes into the dining room for his lunch. Catherine comes home from court and tells everyone that Sir Robert is now worried about how the case will turn out. Grace and Dickie go to court, so Arthur and Catherine can talk things over. Catherine shows that she likes Sir Robert more and more, but they are both afraid they will lose. This is Desmond Curry coming to the house. He seems ready to ask Catherine to marry him now that he knows she broke up with John, even though he knows she will never love him. She cuts him off and says she will think about it. He leaves, confused, but not before letting slip that Sir Robert turned down a high-profile job as a judge to keep working on the case. Arthur comes in and says that people are staring at him through the front window. Catherine tells Desmond that she is thinking about marrying him so that she can have a good life and maybe stop working for women's right to vote. Arthur believes that getting married to Desmond is crazy. Arthur gives her a kiss on the head and says he's sorry for making her life so difficult, but she says they have only done what they had to because of tyranny and injustice. Out in the hall, they hear a newspaper boy yell, "Winslow case result." Violet tells Arthur and Catherine that they won, and she talks about how happy everyone was in the courtroom. Catherine and Arthur are shocked and a little mad that they missed the win. Sir Robert comes to the house and gives Arthur a piece of paper with the Admiralty's statement that Ronnie is not guilty of any crime written on it. He tells Catherine that she should have been in court. Arthur chooses to stand up instead of being wheeled out when he goes outside to talk to the press. Catherine asks Sir Robert why he keeps his feelings so close to himself. He says he cried when the decision came in, just like Wright did. Ronnie walks in and says he's sorry he missed the decision. He then asks if they won. Sir Robot says he hopes to see Catherine in Parliament again. She replies that if she does, it will be as an equal, not as someone who watches him work. When he goes and says goodbye to her, he says, "Perhaps."
About the author. Terence Rattigan was born in South Kensington, London, in 1911. Rattigan's father would work as a minister and his son would work for the government. Rattigan went to Harrow School before starting at Oxford and had a normal education. He came from an upper-middle-class family. Rattigan became obsessed with theatre when she was young after going to the theatre. At Harrow, she read all of the plays in the school library. Rattigan dropped out of Oxford to write plays because he wanted to be one so badly. Rattigan's first big hit, French Without Tears, came out in 1936. He was a tail gunner in the Royal Air Force during World War II. After the war, he wrote a string of plays that were both popular and well-reviewed. These included The Winslow Boy and the Browning version, which made him a big playwright for good. Soon after, though, younger writers like the Angry Young Men took over and made his plays less popular. Rattigan kept working and wrote what are now thought to be some of his best plays. Rattigan was knighted by Queen Elizabeth in 1971. He was only the fourth playwright in the 20th century to receive this award. He died in Bermuda at age 66.
Hope we summarized it fully and you liked it. Please hit the like button and subscribe to our channel so that we are motivated to create more videos.